Tan Talk Radio Network.
Hello and welcome back to Sci-Fi Hour at Joy on Paper Radio, a program for writers and those who dream of writing. And I just had a fantastic chat with author Edward Sands. Next, we're going to be having Lyndsey Lewellen on the show. But before I bring her on, I would like to, I'm going to ask the wonderful producer, Big Ed, to play a book buzz for her book, The Chaos Grid. Hello, fellow sci-fi readers. This is author Bria Burton reporting for Joy on Paper with your science fiction book buzz. Today's communique to galaxies near and far includes a 2024 YA dystopian, The Chaos Grid by Lyndsey Lewellen, with stellar narration by Jennifer Jill Araya. The novel is available in print, ebook, and audiobook. Now, let's download the book buzz. Juniper Conway is on the run, not only because she's hell-bent on revenge for her parents' murders, but also because she's uninterested in returning to the Dome City where her aunt and uncle want to help the very people responsible for killing her mom and dad. The Outer Grid isn't safe either. Man-made attempts to control nature went terribly wrong, resulting in the global weather collapse, and leaving an uninhabitable wasteland where roving beasts now roam. The bureaucrats are trying to legalize nanodrugs, which means life will become that much harder for anyone who lives in the Texas domes. But Juniper is a basic, which means she's lacking any synthetic upgrades, such as enhanced muscular strength like the synth bully who's trying to steal another girl's train pass right in front of her. Something in her makes it impossible not to intervene, and she gives the bully her own train pass. Now Juniper's stuck, and her best friend shows up just in time to try to stop her from taking her last chance at freedom. True, it's insane. Ride the grid, feed the people, earn a living, fight to stay alive. To her surprise, her best friend tags along as they teleport to the Outer Grid station, ready to enlist. If Juniper stays alive long enough, she just might get her chance at revenge. Author Lyndsey Lewellen grew up on comic books and punk rock music, convinced she'd spend her life illustrating superheroes or singing on stage. When she's not writing or reading, she designs book covers and paints on shoes. She lives on a small Texas farm with her husband, their 5 children, and what some might call a zoo of animals. This is Bria Burton with your Futuristic Fiction Fix, signing off. And Lyndsey, welcome to the show.
Hi, Bria. Good to talk to you.
It is so wonderful to talk to you. And the guest I just had on was at Realm Makers, and you were also just at Realm Makers. So I had the wonderful opportunity to meet you in person and to, you had sent me your book signed, but I went ahead and had you sign it some more. So, so it was just absolutely wonderful to meet you in person and to now get the opportunity to talk about your wonderful book and about you. And I just wanted to start by asking you, tell us about you as a writer. Were you writing as a little kid? Was there something in your life that led you to start writing later? What's kind of your backstory with writing and even writing this novel in particular?
Yeah, sure. So I actually did not start writing as a child. I actually started my creative endeavors with drawing comic books, drawing pictures of my Barbies, just anything I could get my hands on. And I really loved comic books. I really enjoyed the stories, but sometimes the words would kind of jumble around on the page, especially with novels. And so I grew up with mild dyslexia, although it was kind of undiagnosed at the time. So I struggled with reading. My mother, however, she is an author, and she was not going to let that slide. She said, no, reading is wonderful. You're going to love it. I know it. You just got to keep giving it a shot. So she gave me my copy of The Scarlet Pimpernel one time when I was a teenager, and I said, I can't read this. And she was like, no, just give it a chance. It's got sword fights. It's got romance. You're going to love it. And I did. I really persevered and finished that book, and I did fall in love with the novel after that. So that was kind of my first beginnings in reading. Writing came much later on when I was an adult. I taught youth group, and I really saw some of these girls, some of the things they were reading were not really lifting their spirits. And I thought, you know what, maybe I'll give them a shot. at writing, and I used my mom a lot to help me when I wasn't doing so great at it, but that's kind of where it all started.
Well, thank you for sharing that struggle with dyslexia, because, wow, here you are with your novel. And am I correct that this is your debut?
It is my debut, yes.
Oh, so that, I mean, what an encouragement. Listeners, take heart. There are things that do come up against us as writers, and those are things that can often be overcome, or they just become part of being able to write from a place of deep emotion. And I imagine there was some of that in there as you were writing this novel.
Oh, yes, very much so.
And so let's talk a little bit about the illustration part. So I'm in the studio. Obviously, we're talking on the phone, and the radio listener can't see us. But if you're watching on my live Facebook page, or there's the live YouTube channel with the Tan Talk Radio Network, I have your beautiful book that I'm going to grab real quick. We're having some technical difficulties. There may be some ghosts in the machine. Please stand by, and we'll be right back with our program.
Just made it a little bit more futuristic, and a few extra buildings that are definitely not there. So that was a lot of fun. My son helps me with some of the geography. He's really, really into geography. He said, "Mom, no, there's no mountains over there. There can be this there. There's the rivers here." So he really helps me with that.
I'm holding up to the camera so people can see Texas 2224, and that's your setting. And this map is so cool. You've got the outer grid there, and then the city domes all around. Okay, and then you've got character cards.
Yes.
I seem to have dropped Juniper. Where'd she go? Here she is.
No.
Our main character, Juniper, she's got this gorgeous, long, dark blue hair. Tell us a little bit about drawing these characters, and what were some of the inspiration for the style. I mean, you mentioned comic books. Yeah. And I so get that vibe as I look at these. Her best friend, Tori, at the beginning of the novel, we meet Tori. And then Dax, we meet shortly. Doesn't take long to meet Dax, but he's not at the very beginning. Tell us a little bit about creating this artwork, and how you go about creating your artwork.
Oh, sure. So I knew I wanted some kind of character art to go with it, and the story is a post-apocalyptic story, but it's not, I would say it's not dark and colorless. It has lots of colors. So
Agreed.
I like to say it's neon.
Neon dystopian. I love it.
Neon dystopian, yes. So it kind of has a mix of cyberpunk mixed in there, too.
Yes.
So,
very much, yes.
Oh, yes. And I wanted to have that kind of comic book style to go with it. And so you'll see that. You'll see some of the halftone behind them, and some of the ink blots behind them to give them kind of that grunge look, but also the really bright colors. So, I was really excited to draw them and to give them kind of their personalities. So just to give a little extra element. Mm-hmm.
And that is one of my questions. So you hand draw these characters?
Yes. So I hand draw them on my art tablet. So I don't draw them by hand separate. I draw them with my pen and my tablet, and then I use some other effects to get them colored in and such. But yes, they're hand drawn, but with the computer.
Okay, understood. So meaning these are not stock characters that you got off, one of the websites that you can get stock characters from.
No.
These are your creations, hand drawn, with your program, obviously. But I mean, what an incredible gift, especially as an author who is writing in this genre. And what would you say in terms of your book cover? Now, did you design your own book cover, or did someone else?
I did not design it, but I worked really closely with the designer. His name is Kirk DuPont, and he does fantastic covers. So I was very lucky to be one of his clients. So,
your cover is incredible. It's so evocative. It's so cool. And you also do design book covers, though. Am I right about that?
That is correct. Yes,
Yes,
I
yes.
design lots of covers books.
Okay, so, and not specific to sci-fi, all genres. Is that?
Yes, I actually started out designing covers in the romance genre, which I still love to do, and I'm still highly involved in that. Cozy mysteries, suspense, some nonfiction here and there, sci-fi, fantasy, paranormal. Pretty much, if you ask me to design it and it's a novel, I'll go for it.
And I know we mentioned our mutual friend Marita Moreau. Have you done any of her covers?
Yes. I have done a few of her covers, yes.
Oh, we got to shout out Rita Moreau. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
She's a cozy mystery author who does our mystery book buzzes here at Joy on Paper. And I love that I'm talking to her book cover artist, who's also a sci-fi author.
Oh, she's wonderful. I love working with Rita.
Yes, yes. Oh, how great. And so you've got book covers that you're doing on top of your writing. Did you do any book covers for your mother, who you mentioned is an author?
Yes, I actually started out doing book covers with my mom.
Oh.
So she decided to go indie back in, I think, it was like 2012, maybe 2011, somewhere around there. And she said, hey, how about you design my covers? I was like, I don't know how to do that. I just draw on the computer. And she said, no, you can do it. It's not that hard. For me, I guess, she said.
For you, it won't be
pretty
that
hard.
Yeah, yeah. And
she had a lot of confidence in me.
Yeah, obviously, that's what I was going to say. Obviously, she had much confidence in your ability to learn what you didn't already know. I adore that. Just the mother-daughter relationship right there. It's so sweet.
Yes.
Okay, so let's get into the novel a little bit. So this novel was just released this year, correct?
Yes, in April of this year.
In April. And so I got my copy. I got to enjoy the ride. And tell us a little bit about, the listener got to hear the book buzz. Tell us a little bit about some of the story ideas and oh my goodness, you have these fantastical beasts that are kind of mythical meets cyberpunk. And you have the giant rigs that are driven all over the outer grid. And you've got the domed cities, and that there's a scene where the domed city wall is coming down. Oh, it was intense. It was so good. And so tell us a little bit about some of these just big sci-fi ideas and how you were able to kind of make those come alive on the page.
Oh, sure. So, like I said, I was a big fan of comic books. And in comic books, there's very short stories.
Yes.
And you really have to get the action. You got to get somebody interested right away. You got to get to the action. And then you have to leave right on cliffhangers right at the end of every comic book. So I'm used to that style of writing. And so my favorite part about writing is definitely the chapter endings. And so I was thinking, what could be really interesting that I would enjoy reading? And I thought of, okay, if Texas was in the future and is this crazy world, what if all the animals got mutated? Okay, so what kind of crazy animals could we have that would cause lots of trouble? And so my mind kind of went from there. I got some inspiration from Dune, from Mad Max, a little bit from Blade Runner, just really the aesthetic of those stories.
You've nailed it, by the way. That aesthetic, you've nailed it. It's so awesome. Go on. I'll stop interrupting.
Oh, no, that's okay. Yeah, and so that was kind of the idea there, and like, how would this world be dangerous, and who would want to even go out in this world, and why would they want to go out in this world that's so dangerous? And so that kind of really gave me a good characterization of the shippers who drive the massive trucks, and thought, okay, if they do this for a living, why do they do it? And if they care so much about feeding other people, so they've got to be people who care about other people, but they also have to be people who are really tough, no nonsense kind of guys. And so that's really where their characters came from in this world. And then the people who live in the domes they want everything quick. They want just enhancements very quick. Like, what would a world be like where everything was just super quick and convenient, but yet people still didn't care about their own, or they didn't like the skin that they were in and they wanted something better? What would they do to themselves? So that's kind of where that came from, too. So lots of different ideas kind of just thrown in a pot.
Yes. Oh, yeah. And who does that resonates with our current day of just instant gratification. Is that not the age we live in. And so it's not hard for the reader to put themselves, as a reader, I'll just speak as a reader, it was not hard to put myself in the story that you were telling. It was, in my mind, very plausible, very plausible. And so the character Juniper, you kind of touched on her motivation. What would motivate someone to go out into this dangerous Texas wasteland? So how did this character come about? Do you see any of yourself in this character? Is she nothing like you, but just somebody, that you created and have just had a story that you wanted to tell through her eyes?
Oh, well, in some ways, I think that she's not like me, but in a lot of ways, I think she is. And sadly, I think the things I don't like about myself, she's like that, where she just doesn't. She gets grudges, and she doesn't want to forgive other people easily. So I feel like that's bad. But something that resonates mostly with me with her is she says no first. She says, no, I'm not going to do that. When God calls her to do something, she says, nope, not going to do that. And she feels a calling to help, and she says no. Throughout the novel, she always says no.
Right,
but then
yes.
instantly she regrets it, and she says, okay, I'll do it anyways. And I think that's very similar to my story, where I say, no, I'm not going to write this novel. It's too hard. I'm not going to be an author. I'm an artist. I'm not going to do that. I've already pigeonholed myself into being this category. But then God was like, no, I'm the one who tells you who you are, and this is what I want you to do. It's not who you are, it's what I'm telling you to do. And so I said, okay. I mean, it's been 11 years of no, and rejections, but eventually.
Meaning the process of getting, when you say 11 years, the process of getting this particular novel published?
Yes, it was 11 years trying to get it published.
Thank you for sharing that as well with the listeners. Yeah, that's not an easy journey.
Yes, and I think, some of it has to do with, I think, the perseverance that God already put into my heart early on in my mind. Reading a book in itself was such a struggle. But then when you found out the good things of it, it was worth persevering. Like the story itself, you found the perseverance. And so sometimes I think maybe that was something God put in my life early on, so that now he's like, you have something bigger that's going to take even more of a struggle for you, and I want to prepare you for that. And I think that sometimes when we persevere through something that's hard, it helps us to do the harder thing later.
Oh, well said. Yes. Oh, that's what an encouragement. And for example, there are potential listeners who are on the similar journey of, I've been getting rejection after rejection after rejection. Tell us a little bit about when the rejection became the yes, if you don't mind sharing that.
Oh, yeah, sure. Well, I went to a writer's conference, and I went in front of a publisher, and one I really, really was excited about a couple of years ago. And this was so I quit about 2 years let me rephrase that. I quit for 2 years when my twins were born.
Yes. I know you have about 5 children, right?
So many. I love them so much. So I quit, and I said, no, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm going to be a mom. That's all I'm going to be doing. But then this writing conference came up, which is Role Makers. And I thought, okay, I'm going to try it again, because my husband was saying, you should do it. And I'm like, okay, I'll try again. And I went to the pitch, and I said, okay, and I did my whole pitch, but then I got rejected again. I was like, okay. So then I just went back and I said, you know what? I don't feel like giving up this time. I'm going to try again. And so I revised the beginning.
That rejection was not deterrent. It was almost oh, wait a minute. I can do something here. I can work on this.
Yeah, at that point, I really knew that this was what I was supposed to be doing. So I said, no, I'm going to try again, even though it's hard. So I revised it. I hired actually an editor to help me with not the story itself as much as with my query process. And reworking that part of it. And so she was like, you have a good book, you're not pitching it very well. So we reworked my query, sent it off again, this time through email, through digital pitching. And I was out actually on vacation with my family, and my husband, when we got home, we got into my kitchen, and my husband said, "You got this email from the publisher," and he didn't even tell me what it was really. He just started reading it, saying, "We would like to see your manuscript."
Oh.
And I was standing at the time, and I collapsed. You should let me sit down.
Oh. And your husband gallantly came over and caught you before you hit the floor, of course.
Oh, he was on the other side of the kitchen, so I went down fast, but I didn't hurt anything, and he picked me up. Yes, he's like, "Well, are you okay?"
Oh my goodness!
I was like, this was the yes. I've been waiting for 11 years, and I finally got the yes, and so it was emotional, to say the least.
Yes, yes. Oh, what a beautiful story! I love that he was reading it aloud and you collapsed. I'm sorry that you collapsed, but that just, as the listeners can enjoy just kind of the the story that you were experiencing before they read your fiction story. And
yes.
Oh, isn't that the way of it? Sometimes our real lives are even stranger than the fiction stories we tell. And okay,
sure.
So you got your yes, and you're published with Enclave.
Mm-hmm.
And tell us a little bit about working with Enclave, how you've enjoyed, or anything that you want to share about that.
Oh my goodness, working with Enclave has been an absolute dream. Their whole team is very responsive. They're very supportive. But not only that, the team outside of their immediate team, so the other authors, I feel like I've just gathered a whole group of friends, and we're working towards the same goal. We're trying to build a large pond of fiction that really gives people hope and encourages not only young people, but people of all ages, really, and just to give them somewhere to go that's got very clean and good fiction that will spark their imagination, and they'll have a wonderful time. And I love how they're growing. But yes, I love working with Enclave for sure.
And so when you talk about clean fiction, so is your book, it's categorized as YA dystopian. Is it targeting a Christian audience or a general audience? Talk a little bit about the targeting there and what clean fiction even means.
Sure. So when I say clean fiction, I mean that there is not going to be foul language in it. Mm-hmm. There is not going to be a lot of gratuitous scenes. Now that there are dark parts mentioned in my book. But,
meaning gratuitous violence?
Right. So it's not heavy on the violence. I don't describe, there's not violence for violence sake. There's purpose between
Great way to word it.
Behind the violence that happens. There's hope in it, so there is that in my book. There's not gratuitous sex scenes either, so that's also what I would consider to be clean. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Do you? And this is not something that happens with books for the most part, but I was able to chat with an author named Steve Raza, who I met at Realm Makers a few years ago. He was on the show, and he actually puts ratings on his book. If you go to his books, you go to his website and scroll down, you can see his catalog. He's a prolific author, my goodness.
Oh,
and
yes, he is.
When you look at his book series, there are ratings like a PG, a PG-13, a G for the little kids. Would you be able to rate your book PG, PG-13? Is that comparable?
No, sure. Yes, I would say PG-13. There are a couple scenes in there that, while it's not described really heavily, but it might be something that a parent would want to read first before, I think, giving to their child if they're going below 13.
Yes.
But like I said, there's not foul language, there's not gratuitous violence, but yeah, probably PG-13. And I love Steve. I think that's such a great thing that he does. So.
Oh, yes. Yeah, he was a fun author to chat with as well. I imagine I'll have him back sometime, too. So what are you working on now? What's next? And then we do sadly have to say goodbye, but let's talk about what's next and how people can find you online.
Sure. So right now I am finishing up book 2 in the series. It was just
I was going to ask if there was of course, at the end, I'm like, there's got to be a sequel. Okay, go on.
Yes, book 2 in the series is going to be coming out summer of next year, and it was just announced today officially
Oh,
on Enclave's newsletter.
We're part of the announcement.
Yes, today is the big announcement. So we will be it will completely be finished as a duology. So this will end the entire story.
Okay.
But there's just more to tell. So
Yes. Oh, yes. It was quite a cliffhanger, actually. And where can they find you online? And your books?
You
and
can
your
find
book?
me, Sure. You can find me online at LyndsyLewellen.com, which is LYNDSEY, Llewellyn, LEWELLEN. I know it's kind of a weird spelling, .com, or on Instagram, which is just my name. And those are the two places I think you can best reach me.
And is your book available on all the major retailers?
Absolutely. So Amazon or Barnes & Noble or anywhere that books are sold, sure.
And so that's The Chaos Grid by Lyndsey Lewellen. Go to her site, go to Amazon, and get this book. So thank you, Lyndsey. We will absolutely have you back for your sequel. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you, Bria.
Bye-bye now.
Bye.
Oh, this has been a wonderful Sci-Fi Hour. Thank you all for tuning in. I am Bria Burton, and we will see you next month with 2 more amazing sci-fi authors. And if you're tuning in to Joy on Paper, we're every Tuesday, Thursday, 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. Eastern, and Patsy will be back, so be sure to tune in, and we will see you all later. Bye-bye now.